Hi, today we'll be taking a look at the Elgato 4k60 Pro capture card and testing out in its two different modes, Passthrough and the clone mode, to test out which one, if any, is better at matching the FPS when not recording. I just got the card myself and I wanted to test this out for myself because I'm using it to benchmark and wanting to get the correct numbers. So I thought I'd make it into a little video and hope that it could help someone else out as well. And in all honesty, get some views as well. Hopefully anyway. We'll be comparing frame rates against each other, against the frame rates I got while not recording, and also against Nvidia Shadowplay and OBS Studio to see which one comes out on top. I picked a few different games and I did multiple runs for each recording setup, and I took the averages from the runs. I recorded all the footage at 4k60 with all the different recording methods. But in some of the games, I used a low resolution just to try and be a bit more CPU limited to see how it would affect the frame rates. The video itself was still in 4K though. Just as a quick note, I am using a 5800X3D in the gaming PC here though, so it's a pretty powerful CPU. So if you're using something a bit weaker, say with OBS, you might find that you get less FPS, but it won't change the frame rates if you're using the Elgato. Just make sure your recording or streaming PC is high enough spec to run the card. Also, an annoying issue that I found, and really should have thought about before I bought the card, is my bottom PCIe slot didn't run at fast enough speeds to actually run the card. Luckily my middle one did, but if you have a big card that covers it, or another card of some kind in the middle slot, you could be knackered. So just make sure to check your PCIe speed before you buy the card. So anyway, let's do it. Right, so we're going to start here with the 4k60 Pro. We're playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor at 4K high settings. And on the left we have the pass-through mode, and on the right we have the clone mode. And as you can see by the numbers, they're both equally matched here, which is nice to see. There's some advantages to each mode really. The clone mode's a bit easier to set up and doesn't take as much messing around with the actual setup. And the pass-through mode basically works better audio wise, as it allows the sound to come through and record at the same time without messing around with Windows settings or buying any other external devices. But the pass-through mode does also have the issue of screen tearing if your game goes over 60Hz. Whereas the clone mode can capture 60Hz while allowing you to use your monitor's standard refresh rate without any screen tearing while gaming. But if you want to hear your audio and record it at the same time, you have to either set up stereo mix in Windows, which is what I did, or install Elgato sound capture on your gaming PC and do something with that, which I haven't tried, or buy an external controller to control your audio. Right, so now we're going to add in the data from Shadowplay, OBS and not recording. We have Shadowplay on the left here of the video and OBS on the right. And in the centre there you'll see the numbers for not recording. So that's just numbers that I took with MSI Afterburner while I had no recording software running. So there's no video for that. But as you can see, both pass-through and clone mode match the not recording mode. I mean, they're beating it somehow, but that's just margin of error really. And Shadowplay is a little bit lower, taking a tiny bit of resources to run it. And then OBS, you can see there's a bit of a big difference there, 5 FPS, nothing major. So if you were streaming or just recording for your own pleasure, I don't really think it's a big issue, not with this graphics card anyway. But if you were just managing a locked 60 FPS and you were turning on OBS there, you're losing 5 frames, so that's going to reduce the smoothness of your gameplay there, so it's not ideal. Whereas with the 4K60, you're perfectly matching it there, so it's not bad at all. And if you're someone like me who wants to do the benchmarks of games, the 4K60 is really required to get accurate FPS, at least in this game, in this situation. I've seen times where Shadowplay can match the non-recording data, but then you might change to a different setting, and there's a huge discrepancy between the numbers, so it's not reliable, just like in this game. I had a bit of an issue with OBS in this game where basically it just kept recording a black screen, and the only way I could solve it was to start the game in windowed full screen with no MSI afterburner. Select the specific window in OBS, start OBS, then change the game to full screen and add MSI afterburner, and then it worked fine. Right, so now we have Modern Warfare 2, and in this one I turned the settings down to 1440p minimum to try and put a little bit more stress on the CPU. And we're back to the 4K60 now with the Passthrough versus Clone mode, and as you can see, they're very close to each other, but you are getting a couple more frames with the Clone mode there. I didn't use MSI Afterburner in this game as it has its own benchmark, so I just went with that, because MSI Afterburner did seem to reduce the frame rate a little bit, so I just left it off. It's also more accurate this way, as the inbuilt benchmark will run for the same amount of time every time, so I just did 3 runs with this and took the averages. Now, once again, we're looking at Shadowplay on the left and OBS Studio on the right here, and we'll bring in the rest of the numbers. And as you can see, with the clone mode, you're getting 1 frame difference, which is probably just margin of error really. Shadowplay and the pass-through mode are matching, getting 3 frames less than when I wasn't recording here, with OBS losing 10 frames there, so it's quite a lot. Not in the grand scheme of things, obviously you're getting 300 odd frames here, but it's quite a big difference from the clone mode on the 4K60. Right, so now we have Resident Evil and we use the max settings, which has ray tracing enabled. And once again, we're back to the 4K60 Pro. We have pass-through on the left and clone mode on the right. And as you can see, again, the clone mode is beating the pass-through mode by a couple of frames. It's not a massive difference and could possibly even out a bit if I did more and more runs of the game. But in this particular test, it does seem that pass-through is performing slightly worse than clone mode. I also had a bit of an issue with pass-through mode in this game, where every time I launch it the first time after a system restart, the game crashed. But it did work every time the second time I loaded it as well. I never had this issue with any of the recording methods though. Not that it's a huge issue, I just thought I'd mention it anyway. Once again, we have Shadowplay on the left and OBS on the right, and the other numbers are up so you can compare them all. In this game, clone mode perfectly matches the numbers we're not recording. Pass-through is a couple of frames down, and then you have Shadowplay, which is 4 frames down. Once again, at the bottom of the barrel for performance anyway. We have OBS, which is 6 frames down. So the clear winner is the Elgato 4k60 Pro, especially in clone mode, only dropping 1 FPS lower than when it wasn't recording at all, and that was probably just margin of error. The pass-through mode does seem slightly poorer for some reason though, so it won't give perfect results, in my limited experience anyway. In clone mode, the 4k60 Pro is up to 5% faster than Shadowplay, and 8% faster than OBS here. It's not a massive amount, but there will be times when the gaps are bigger with certain games, at certain settings, and when using weaker hardware. On my i3 12100F system, I dropped from 71 to 61 FPS when enabling Shadowplay in Star Wars at 1080p low settings, and OBS would have probably been worse here, so the 4k60 would have really shined. But there will be times when you won't even notice the difference too, unless you're recording benchmark runs, that is. But also, I'm only recording here, so expect larger margins when streaming, as it's more demanding on the system, so the 4k60 should pull away even further, especially in recording and streaming simultaneously with different settings. So let me know if you're interested in the streaming numbers, and I'll try and get around to that too. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching my video, hope you enjoyed it, hope it provided you with some value. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe for more. Thanks, bye.